What's a job that is romanticized but in reality sucks? An architect. You think you'll be designing big fancy iconic buildings. Warehouses, Walmarts, strip malls, and crapbox apartments all need architects, and that's probably what you'll end up doing. Also, the industry is obsessed with working itself to death. Sure, you're on salary, but if you don't work over 40 hours, are you really an architect? Apparently, lifeguard, because nobody can find them anymore. Computer game development, especially testing. I was gonna say video game development too. People think it's all about creativity and making something cool and fun, when in reality, it's a lot of bullcrap. Treat them like crap, use them like toilet paper. So, all of the jobs then? Everyone used to think it was awesome that I worked in live sports TV. 70% of the people I worked with were miserable pricks with overinflated egos. And then there were the athletes. Most, not all, jobs in the environmental sector. Pay is usually quite low. You tend to work in very ugly places, landfills, contaminated sites. You are expected to get jobs done in half the time that you really need with as few resources as possible. And if you are consulting for other companies, nobody really wants to be working with you to save the environment. They generally are just trying to barely meet some regulations. I knew an environmental consultant. His job was practically helping companies avoid fines while still polluting the environment. He quit. Journalist. Expectation. I'm gonna be the next Hunter S. Thompson and write compelling feature pieces with a unique voice and get paid to travel the world. Reality. Talking to my editor about how my contact from the cat fashion show won't call me back or do an interview unless we pay them $80 or adopt 2 cats. Game tester. I worked as a game tester for EA for almost 3 years. Here's what it's like. Imagine a game type you don't like, maybe soccer games, maybe an RTS, whatever. You now play that game 8 hours a day. But you don't play it, you test it. So let's imagine an RTS. You are told to test the resource acquisition systems. All you do is click around and make sure your guys can mine gold and harvest lumber. You click around the map and mine and forest. There is no combat. They've turned that off for your testing. There is no story because you just flick from level to level to test the resource system. You test using 1 guy. You test using 100 guys. You make sure no other units can gather resources. You try blocking your own guys. You try killing your own guys. 8 hours a day, every day, for weeks. You enter dozens of bugs. They put out a patch that fixes the bugs. You have to retest every level and every bug to make sure they're all fixed. That's game testing. A lawyer. A number of historic life-changing precedent-setting cases participated in, 0. Number of angry, self-entitled, abusive clients wanting to screw each other over, 100. Number of pages of paperwork that sucked up free time and social life, 100,000. Working on a film. If you're crew, it sucks. Long hours for what seems like very slow progress on the picture. Lots of standing around and waiting, etc. You arrive well before everyone else and leave after everyone else. If this is an indie production, you also may have to beg/chase down for your payment at the end of each week. Oh, and when the film wraps, you're now unemployed. From what I've understood, being a cowboy was really awful. Gunslingers and bandits too. Literature often portrays them as folk heroes who wore flashy studded suits and gun belts and traipsed around towns like they owned them, striking fear into the civilians and lawmen alike. However, the reality of the matter is that these guys were nothing more than common criminals and fugitives who were always on the run, could never settle down and relax, and often had only a rope or bullet to the head to look forward to at the end of their incredibly short lives. Ballerina. Doctor. Fantasy. I make lots of money and everyone respects me. Reality. I watch people die every day, work exhausting 12-hour shifts, have crippling depression and multiple addictions. Musician. Show up at the club at 5 p.m., unload, set up, mic check, wait for hours for the show to start, get mediocre bar food or fast food, play to a half-empty room, tear down, load into vehicles, hopefully get paid enough to cover expenses, leave the club between 2 to 3 a.m. covered in sweat and physically exhausted. Either drive to another location or stay in a mediocre hotel. Lather, rinse, repeat. It's a grind for 99% of musicians out there, although I do miss it. Lawyers. Everyone thinks that it's like Suits. Reality: reading papers for hours and running behind clients in order to get them to come to the appointment. Source: my dad. Anything in modern-day publishing. How many television shows and movies must I watch where the plucky young upstart graduates from college and gets a job at the magazine or newspaper of their choice and is respected and can make a living? The pay sucks, you're in constant danger of being laid off. When your pub folds usually, and it's usually a pretty corporate environment where you're tasked with multiple jobs for little hope of advancement. The names high up on the mastheads are usually those of rich people, and it's because they started off rich and could afford to stay in the industry. Probably anything in the entertainment industry. It's bogged down by a lot of workers' rights violations, insane hours during crunch time, no work/life balance, and you don't even get paid much because your employers and society at large think it's a privilege to even be working in the industry. Scientist. The dream is you come in every day searching for truth and answers to life and the universe's fundamental problems. The truth is, you are stuck in a no-win situation of having to publish like crazy and write grants that are expected to support your work and the whole university while also handling a teaching load, fending off toxic colleagues, doing service and getting a destructive administration off your back. Everywhere you turn is criticism and blockages. Your papers and grants are rejected, your students crap on you in your teaching evaluations, and you go into every faculty meeting already gritting your teeth because your colleagues on the other side of whatever faction are going to try to shut you down about everything. You can always go into industry and make quite a chunk of change, but people give up a lot of creative aspects on their work. There is nothing wrong with science being another job where you are a part of the larger mission of your company, including making a profit. It's just not what people think being a scientist is like. I have 2 jobs that fit the bill. Video game tester. The pay is terrible. You sit in a dark room with no windows all day performing monotonous tests with a group of antisocial introverts. I ran out of inventive ways to submit bug reports saying, the player cannot approach closely enough to the rock at coordinates XYZ. See attached screenshot. I remember working as a group for hours to attempt to manually test an unlockable achievement, only to have the development team push out a new code build right before we finished. So we had to start all over again. Archaeologist. Again, the pay is terrible. Most of the projects are tied to expanding the fossil fuel industry. Doing phase 1 work involves checking to see if anything of cultural value is present in a given area. I compare it to playing Battleship. You dig a hole, it's empty, miss. You dig a hole, you find something, hit. Dig around the hit, looking for other hits. You mostly dig many, many empty holes. I had to rebury my most interesting find, a Native American hearth, because it wasn't in the budget to excavate it. Due to how the laws work, that site was later bulldozed, and now there's a gas station there. Most of these are something I think most wouldn't romanticize, honestly. Game development. I went to school for it, but did not pursue it after, and went into something else with transferable skills. My roommate in college is a successful developer and has been for years. He gets fired every time the game comes out, and the studio dissolves, which constantly happens. The level of skill required to do his work is about as hard as it gets in terms of programming, yet he gets paid less than a web app developer. Devs are a dime a dozen now since literally every kid goes to school for CS, so if he doesn't like it, he can leave because some fresh grad that's willing to work 100 hours a week would be happy to take his place. They need unions. The worst part? He hates gaming now. I would say working on a ranch. You see on TikTok people working with horses on ranches and everyone is dreaming of that job, but in reality, the job is really hard. Museum jobs. Fantasy is that you're working at a really cool place with cool people with decent pay. The reality is you work at a really cool place with lots of older assholes who get paid decent money while the younger generation gets paid like crap and has zero career advancement options until the older generation dies. Add in internal staff and donor politics, and you have a place ripe with resentment. Actor/actress. Most don't make it big, and many have very short career spans, then fade into obscurity. Twitch streamer. This is a newer form of career, but one that I have seen a lot of younger people romanticize while watching their favorite streamers making millions playing video games. The fact is that the environment is so saturated it's damn near impossible to really get anywhere unless you're incredibly lucky. Academic professor. For that matter, science in general. It's less Bill Nye doing cool crap and more editing copy to appease reviewer 2 who simply has a thing against future tense and passive voice for whatever reason. Anything in the music industry. You're never really off the clock. The pay is terrible pretty much all across the board unless you're in the 1% of the top in any business. People think it's all glamorous because they see the pop stars, the music videos, the award shows. The truth is, it's blood, sweat, tears, stress, lack of sleep, a lot of inappropriate behavior, drugs, alcohol, and again, low pay. And then, maybe once or twice a year, you get a perk of going to an award show with free food, booze, and a chance to say hi to some celebs. Can't even take a photo with them, really, as it's not deemed professional in a work setting. I've been there for 15 years, give or take, branched out and still linked to it in some ways. But I get my money, much better money, might I say, elsewhere now, and without as much stress or worry. Flight attendant. I feel like a YouTuber might be one. Most who try fail. Some who put out multiple videos a day with hours of work for each one to never be recognized, and the ones who do now have to maintain relevance, and depending on who they are, have bigger workloads. I'm not saying it wouldn't be worth it, but it's not as simple as press record and publish. Anything that requires a lot of travel. Sounds glamorous, but in reality all you see is usually an airport, conference room, boring hotel, and maybe a restaurant if you're lucky. It's exhausting, and it actually just sucks. The film and television industry. Long, thankless hours. The expectation is that you should be available 24/7. Otherwise, there is a long lineup of replacements waiting for the chance. You might get lucky and work your way to the top. Maybe enjoy some fame and fortune, but even there, it's a dog-eat-dog world. Most people have to sell a bit of their soul to get and stay there, and if you don't make it, you either toil away on the crew or end up regaling your coworkers in some other industry with exciting stories about your time in the biz. That is if anyone hires you because they just can't understand why you left the exciting world of Hollywood to come work at the grocery store. Raising livestock. Everything about it is so much rougher than any book, show, or movie lets on. You have many days that go by swiftly and easily. Then you're hit with an emergency that makes 3 hours feel like a week. Don't like thinking about death? Then why are you buying animals who are one bad moment away from you having to make the hardest decision you never knew was an option? Fun anecdote, I have a neighbor who moved his family from the city and decided to buy some dairy calves. Now dairy calves are generally cheaper to acquire than they should be. So before long, they've got 5 little guys in a half-acre pen. They call me up one day and say that they're sick and ask if I can take a look. So I head on over and see 4 half-starved calves lying in the sun and a 5th one dead. They've dug a 2-foot deep hole and are preparing to bury the dead little guy. I checked them all out and they're severely dehydrated and starving. I ended up having to put electrolytes into them using an esophageal feeder, as well as treating one for pneumonia. Trying not to lose my temper, I asked them what they've been feeding them. "Oh, we figured they could eat the grass. A guy at a store said they should be old enough now." Those calves were not even 3 months old. Pro tip, that's far too young to be weaned from a bottle. So I bit my tongue and told them they needed bottles for at least another 2 months. It took me half a day of working with them, but all 4 surviving calves lived. Plus, I explained to them that no, you don't bury an animal in 2 feet of dirt. When I got home later that night, I screamed and almost broke something. So, my advice if you like cows, goats, sheep, or horses is this. Go visit somewhere that raises them. Join a 4-hour program. Heck, buy a good old book on them and read to your heart's content. But please don't run headfirst into raising the things because I can promise you you're not prepared for it. I've been raising them for almost 30 years and I still have some times where I'm left shocked and hopeless. IT security. It's not fighting hackers, it's a bunch of checklists and hours of meetings that are on the edge of turning into an argument. Chef. My dad is one, and he is never home. Like Christmas, Easter, and every other significant holiday. He is at work and not with his family. It kinda sucks because we want to celebrate with him and he is never home. Most jobs in the TV or film industry. People think it's glamorous, but it's often thankless, backbreaking work. The wages are usually decent, thanks to strong unions, but it's not like most people are building generational wealth. Plus, hours and working conditions can be a nightmare. But the most stressful part is how inconsistent work can be. Most film shoots are anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, and TV shows are at risk of being canceled at any point. Imagine if you had to find a new job every 3 months. It would get tiring pretty quickly. And those periods of downtime between productions aren't a vacation. It's not like you can sit back and relax. You need to hustle for your next gig, because even though you earn a decent wage, it's not enough to live the rest of your year without more work. Plus, there's a lot of competition for jobs because there's always a new crop of kids moving to town with stars in their eyes that don't yet understand how unglamorous the industry can really be. I'm a tattoo artist. There's a lot of elements of my job that I really love, but the reality most ignore when considering it: you work constantly. You're either tattooing or designing for the next client. This includes often staying up till the early morning and drawing constantly. I'll often only clock out after a 12 to 16 hour day. You work weekends and generally have Mondays off. Some folks take Sundays too, which means your social life suffers immensely. No one is free when you are on a Sunday night. I also won't tattoo hungover, so I don't party like some folks think we do. Relationships and friendships will suffer when you realize you're hardly ever available. It's a very hard industry to get into. You'll work for free for years as an apprentice, learning as you go while having to make a plan for food, rent, transport, etc., with no free time to actually do that. It seems to be changing a bit, but it's not hard to find countless stories about how badly you can be treated as an apprentice too. In the industry for a long time, it was considered a rite of passage to earn your way in and weed out the weak. Your lower back will be in constant pain. You will generally work as an independent contractor and have no job security or health insurance. You don't make money if you don't work. Every vacation is a working vacation. You'll be expected to forever make custom artwork for clients who feel very entitled to demand changes, fair considering the medium, and who often have a very clear image of what they want, which they have trouble conveying to you. For the hours put in for a finished customized piece, after shop and equipment cuts, you're not making nearly as much as people like to think based on hourly rates. The amount also has to be put towards your dead hours too. It's unforgiving, but there is a unique freedom that comes with it too. But it isn't all romance like you'd like it to be. I forgot to add a very infuriating big part of the job now is social media relevancy. Most clients are secured online these days. You are a slave to the Instagram algorithm. I see big old gruff tattoo artists patiently trying to work out how to edit videos or sync music for TikTok so the kids will stay interested. Who knows what is next? You constantly have to generate your own engaging content to stay relevant and keep getting paid for your actual job. Every now and then there will be a change in the algorithm or system, and you'll notice the ripples of frustration across the industry as artists try to work out how to play the game again. You constantly have to feed the social media machine new content, which also means putting in more work in your downtime to have the stuff to post. Celebrity assistant. My cousin is one, and believe me, the way she talks, it's a really hard job to have. It's not fun, but pays well. Masseuse. But it only sucks when people romanticize it. Otherwise, it's pretty awesome. Can suck if people sweat a lot or have massive amounts of body hair that fall off when you rub them. So you come out with your arms covered in some dude's back hair. You also get farted on a lot, and hit on, and comments like, "Oh, I feel sorry for your boyfriend with all that strength in your fingers." Good thing is, you can just laugh and push a really sore trigger point to make yourself feel better. Otherwise, it's a pretty awesome job, but definitely not for everyone. Being a chef. Everyone. Oh, what's your favorite thing to make? You must eat fabulous at home. Reality. Depending on where I've worked, I can cook anything. I prefer a simple fried egg and toast at home. 10 to 12 hour shift, hot year-round work area. All jobs where you are making money for someone else, in reality, suck. Even being an entrepreneur can suck. Overall, spending the majority of your life trying to earn money so that you can enjoy the little bit you have left sucks. For office folks, hard-earned labor is romanticized, and for labor folks, office jobs are. In reality, they can both suck depending on where you work and who you work for. I think the most important thing is to work somewhere well-managed, adequately staffed, where everyone does their jobs, so it doesn't exist. Archaeologists and paleontologists. Know what's fun? Flying to places like Egypt or Mexico to find ruins. Know what's not fun? Bug bites, heat stroke, going for days without a bath in 50-degree with humidity weather, sunburn, digging for hours, decoding pictographs that were written and eroded thousands of years ago, being overshadowed by someone who pretends to be the sole person on the expedition, being yelled at by the locals who accuse you of stealing their culture, being yelled at by others when you're the only one actually trying to study the past, being tossed aside by someone who wants to advance their career and attempts to take credit for your stuff, accidentally breaking something, the dirt, the heat. Did I mention the stink? Oh, and you don't get to punch Nazis either. These days, that gets you fired because you just punched a student. Stockbroker/financial advisor. I was a broker/advisor for over 25 years, and it was what I wanted to be from about age 15. I thought it would be cool to know all about the stock market and make a lot of money. What I didn't realize was the fact that if you're a person with any moral compass, it can be extremely stressful as you have people's financial lives in your hands. And many of my clients were retired, so making mistakes or giving bad advice could seriously affect their lives. When I first got into the business, drug use was rampant. Cocaine was the drug of choice, but there were also a lot of alcoholics. Divorce rates were high, I experienced one myself, and if you have kids, it was near impossible to spend quality time with them on a regular basis. The money was great. I made more money than I ever thought I would. However, there was a trade-off: stress, lack of relationship with kids or wife, and for some, as I mentioned, drug/alcohol addiction. After 25 years, I had enough. I went out on my own terms for a few years, then left the business altogether. Things are different in the industry now, and I think it's a lot more realistic to be a broker/advisor and have a good work-life balance, but it wasn't when I broke into the business. IT technician. People think you just sit at a desk all day, answer the phone, and fix people's computers. No, my dude. Server and network maintenance, running cables, terminating lines, re-imaging computers, emails upon emails upon emails, connecting new buildings to the current infrastructure, testing Wi-Fi signals, and writing certificates. Upkeep on all technology, not just computers, but cameras, TVs, sound systems, ID card systems, printers and scanners, and remote meeting systems. I could go on and on and on about technology that we work on that has nothing to do with the mainstream idea of what IT actually is. Just as I was writing this, I got an email about keeping a door unlocked during a certain time period because they have electronic locks, so the door schedule is also in there. I used to work in the film/TV world as a camera assistant and camera operator for about 8 to 9 years of my life. I was pretty successful and was lucky to have worked on a lot of major productions, such as the Marvel series on Netflix, Law & Order, 30 Rock, Spider-Man Homecoming, etc. While it is cool and fun to be a part of that world, the work-life balance is non-existent. I was working a minimum of 14 hours a day. Most days go to 16 to 18 hours. This is also 6 days a week, depending on how many gigs you got going on or the schedule of the production that you're on. Even if you join a union, which is required to work on the big budget stuff, you are still forever a freelancer and there is absolutely no job security. If you don't make a name for yourself, you'll fall off the map pretty quickly. Hours suck. There is no real schedule or days off. You're a freelancer, so you sort of make your own schedule. But you have to keep to the strict film schedule. You also have no time for family or friends. Sleep doesn't exist. You also work a mix of studio and outside, working outside in the snow, heat, rain, or shine at all hours of the day and night. There is no steady schedule at all. Honestly, most of it was pretty bad until I started working on the big budget stuff, and even there it wasn't great. It's an extremely high-stress job, too. Perfection is required and a lot of people are on edge. There is no real HR or anything like that. No real protection from a producer going crazy and ruining your career. I can go on with more stuff, but I'll stop here. I'm an event planner, and most everyone's reaction when I tell them is, "Oh, that's so fun." I think people assume that event planners are just kind of like picking up bouquets and attending parties, but in reality, it's a fairly stressful job that doesn't typically pay super well, and the schedule can be erratic. And planners spend way more time dealing with people's egos, thinking about stuff like AV and trash cans, and worrying about things totally out of their control, like a freak snowstorm in the country that the speaker is flying in from, a celebrity panelist deciding to pick their nose during a presentation, a massive power outage. I could go on, but I'd rather not relive all of this than they do at the bar with the guests. A writer. Loads of people think they're going to sit down and write their book one day and get it published. Writing is hard. Writing a coherent story with interesting characters and a plot that goes somewhere and has a beginning, middle, and end is really hard. Getting published is almost impossible, and if you do get published, they expect you to do it all again within a year. That said, it can be awesome, but it's definitely not for everyone. If you have a dream of being a writer one day, start today. Write something, see where it goes. Nurse. A pilot. You are essentially a bus driver with a really expensive bus. except the bus drivers I knew made better money with city benefits and a pension. Anything military. Teacher at a private school. I thought I'd be helping children, doing artistic lessons, enjoying recesses, loving my summers off, influencing the next generation. Also, because I was at a private school, I expected wealthy parents to treat me well and have very few challenging problems to deal with. In reality, I made almost no money, had no benefits, no retirement plan, and the parents were absolutely insanely helicopter on top of me crazy. I was making less than $36K with no benefits and getting calls from parents until 10 p.m. regularly. Also, the amount of admin work and pointless meetings I had to attend was unreal. They expected me to be volunteering to help the school over the summer. I quit and got an office job. Working at Disney World. Honestly, the job itself is pretty nice. Working the rides, a restaurant, even custodial. But the company is so big and the chain of command is pretty extensive. Dealing with intercompany politics and rules is a nightmare. Librarian. How is this not number one? You tell someone what your career is and instantly they say, I'd love a job where I could read all day. Or they say what a lifesaver their high school librarian was because they let them avoid being bullied by staying there for lunch. Yeah, you know how many books I read a year? About 100. How many did I read on the clock? 0. No one gets paid to read books other than maybe book reviewers for the New Yorker. It's mostly filled with impromptu social work, plumbing emergencies, administering Narcan, locating parents who think you are a babysitter, pleading for more funds for staff, programming, collections, all the while fending off people who think they are doing the community a favor by banning, hiding, or losing any book they deem immoral. All for the nice starting salary of $40K or less, with a master's degree. If you love the library, vote for their bonds, stick up for them at local meetings, write letters of support, etc. 911 operator. We're all heroes until we get paid a slave wage and get called an idiot every single shift. Ma'am, the black man walking down your street is not an emergency and you shouldn't call 911 for that. Except we didn't have a choice and we have to send police to literally every 911 call that comes in because we have no discretion at all by the policy. Either send them or get fired. Waste of everyone's time. Academia. Being a brewer. Work is hard and backbreaking, very stressful, as well if you are responsible. Stand-up comedian. A lot of people don't realize it takes upwards of 10 years before you even make a decent living. And that's if you're willing to be on the road forever, and depending on the types of rooms, only tell safe jokes. So creatively, you're stifled. You're exhausted from driving, out of shape, bad fast food all the time, in poor health because you're likely drinking or sleeping when not driving or performing, etc. Even getting on TV doesn't guarantee much success. Kevin Hart and Seinfeld are the best you can be financially, but the majority of comedians can maybe pull 15 to 20K per year if they work full-time. Essentially, a road feature makes about $500 a week, but spend something like $200 on basic essentials: fuel, food, hotel, etc. Thanks for watching until the end. Do you have a crappy job that people romanticize? Tell us about it in the comments below. Then be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you know when our next video is available. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time!